All right, today's video is coming to you from northern Portugal. If you have any hesitation about looking at pombas or penises, probably switch to one of my other videos. This recipe I discovered when we visited northern Portugal. We took a tour with Porto Locals, a company. Diana was our tour guide. We headed out early in the morning to go into the Douro Valley and take a beautiful boat ride down the Douro River. Had lunch out there. But on the way there, we stopped by a town called Amarante. What town are we in?
In Amarante.
Amarante.
With
Diana. And in this town, we soon discovered pastry-shaped penises everywhere. And it was a really charming town. The town is known for these pastries. In this town, there's a patron saint, São Gonçalo, and he's almost like their Valentine's Day saint. The rumor about this town is if you go into the igreja, into the church, if you go and pay respect, touch the statue, that you'll find a mate within a year. Very popular destination for singles to go and get some good luck. In fact, while I was there sitting on a bench eating my pomba cake, let's call it, a Velotinha sitting next to me. She was all dressed in black, so I'm guessing her husband may have passed away a few years ago. But she told me a story about an Azorean woman that went into the church hoping to get good luck to find a mate. She went up to the statue of São Gonçalo, reached out, tugged on his junk so hard that the statue tipped over. In her embarrassment, she ran out of the church, knocked over a guy trying to get into the church, and the old lady let me know 3 years later that couple's married. So I guess it works. Might be worth the trip out there. All right, so this is a yeast leavened dough. So the first thing you want to do is make sure you're starting off with some warm water, ideally between about 80 and not above 115 degrees because you don't want to kill the yeast. Put that into a bowl. I'll sprinkle in a little bit of sugar now. I'm making a half batch. There's only so many penises you need lying around the house. Got some yeast in there, the warm water, a little bit of sugar. I'm going to let that sit for about 10 minutes. You'll start to see it bubbling up. That's just a way of rehydrating your yeast. As soon as you see it bubbling up, you know your yeast is active and good to use. So we'll let that sit for about 10 minutes and get back to it. All right, the yeast has been reactivating or rehydrating for about 10 minutes. Has little bubbles going. I know it's good. I'm going to take our flour, and I'm going to take our flour for the full recipe. It's about 800 grams or about a little over 6.5 cups. But I'm just going to put in half the flour at the beginning. You could put, like half up to probably 80% of the flour. I'll stir that in. I'll also put in my sugar, about 1/4 cup sugar. Now the full recipe gets 2 whole eggs. For the full recipe, you want about 300 milliliters of water. So you can see it's quite wet there. And the reason I don't add the salt, because salt is, again, a check on yeast. It'll hold back yeast from multiplying a little bit. You need it in the dough, but it will retard yeast growth a little bit. Also, I'm not going to add the butter just yet, because if I add the butter, it'll hinder gluten development because it gets in between the gluten strands and causes them to break. So I'm just going to let this sit now for about 30 minutes. Let that yeast develop. There's plenty of sugar in there for it to feed on, and the flour, and just let that develop some gluten, and then I'll add in the rest of the flour, the rest of the butter, and the salt. Okay, the dough's been sitting, hydrating for about 30 minutes. I'm going to add in my salt. You put in 2 teaspoons for the full batch, and the rest of my flour. And now I have melted butter. I'm going to add in, for the full batch, it's 8 tablespoons. So all of our ingredients are in here. And then this isn't a very wet dough. It's not like a bread dough that has a 70% hydration, so it takes a while for the flour to hydrate into the dough. Be patient with it, even if you want to let it sit for 5 minutes, come back, mix it some more. You want to knead the dough for about 5 minutes, just helping it develop some gluten and also incorporating all of the ingredients together well. And now you want to let it rest for about 30 minutes to an hour until it doubles in size. Rumor in the town of Amarante is that if you talk dirty to the dough actually rises faster. Give that a try if you like. Make sure your neighbors can't hear you. Another popular dish from northern Portugal is the francesinha. I have that on my website if you want to see how to make one monster of a sandwich. Okay, the dough's been proofing for about 40 minutes. Depending on how wet your dough is, sometimes you might need to put a little bit of flour on the cutting surface. Then you want to portion it out, I would say anywhere from 5 to 7 ounces, whatever you're comfortable handling. So this half batch made 5 5-ounce portions. Obviously the full batch will make about 10 5-ounce portions. So now you just kind of want to roll them into a ball shape, just kind of. And now if you really want to have some fun, get your aunts in here, your grandma, and have her shape these out. You might learn a lot about some Portuguese innuendos and bad words while you're at it. So we will roll out the shaft here. Do a few of these. Sometimes again you want to roll out a little bit and then let the dough rest, because that gluten, it's kind of tight and it won't want to stretch out. If you want a firmer dough, I've heard of some people adding Viagra, but I wouldn't recommend it. I'll also put a link to a great article that all about this tradition on a website called Atlas Obscura. All right, we have our pombas shaped. Now we want to put the bolinhos. So you want to go up 4 inches and just cut it right in half. Ow. And then just kind of roll up the ends. Put a little design on it of your liking. While you're shaping your bolos de San Gonçalo, go ahead and start preheating your oven to 400 degrees Fahrenheit. There you go, pretty simple. I have a lightly oiled cookie sheet pan that I'll put these on. About 204 degrees Celsius. My oven is preheated. I'll put the bolos de San Gonçalo in the oven. Now you want to make an egg wash. You want to get 1 egg, add 1 tablespoon of water and just beat it together. And this is just basically to put like a gloss on the dough. Okay, now the bolos de San Gonçalo have been cooking for about 15 minutes. You want to brush them with the egg wash. After you put them in the oven, you're going to bake them from about 20 to 25 minutes. But after 15 minutes of being in the oven is where you want to put the egg wash, brush that on to give it a nice glossy look. Okay, now to make the icing. This is just powdered sugar. Put that in a bowl. And then the thing, whenever you're making this kind of icing, this glaze, it doesn't take much water at all for the volume of powdered sugar. So go really slow. You could flavor this in different ways. Like I'm gonna put a little bit of lemon juice. The lemon juice is mainly because it's so sweet that it just helps cut some of that sweetness. So this is probably about a 1/4 teaspoon to a 1/2 teaspoon of lemon juice. Now I'm gonna put in about a 1/4 teaspoon of almond extract. You could put other flavoring too. I've heard pineapple extract's good. Let's put that in there and then take your time. So this is just a little over a cup of powdered sugar, and this is a tablespoon of water. You just want to put in a little bit at a time. It's easy to get excited and overshoot it. And now it's definitely turning into a paste. Another 1/4 teaspoon. So that was about 1 tablespoon plus about a 1/2 teaspoon of water. Especially when you get to this point, see how it's falling off the spatula? You want to add water very slowly. So in here I started with about 1.25 cups of powdered sugar, and I put in about a tablespoon plus 1 teaspoon of water, including probably another teaspoon of other liquid, like, there was about a 1/4 teaspoon of the extract, about a 1/4 teaspoon of the vanilla. But the key thing is to go slowly and get it to kind of a spreadable consistency. And I did bake these on a double sheet pan. I always think that's a safe bet to keep them from coloring up too much on the backside. Then we want to get our pastry brush. These are still a little warm. That helps spread it. If your bolos are cold, you might need to make the glaze a little thinner. Then you just liberally want to coat the top. Here's the finished product. Now you can make bolos de San Gonçalo. Make this for your family, maybe a bachelorette party. Have some fun with it. Now go cook for someone you love.